energy efficiency is obviously one of those first steps. You can get it done. There's big savings. People are on board with it.
Yeah.
What's the next step when it comes to your energy?
Well, the next step is looking where it comes from. So, we all need to be purchasing 100% green power and looking at how we can procure renewable energy. And the great thing about NABERS is it allows owners' corporations to communicate that they are running on green power. So one building that we've worked with, Maestro down at Harold Park, for example, has 350 apartments. They are one of the first buildings to get a 6-star NABERS rating with green power. So, and they really took all of their residents through a journey, getting this NABERS rating, really understanding how their building's performing. They had a costed action plan that showed how several efficiency projects, linking those to an increased star rating so they can plan out that work. But they decided early on that some of these efficiency projects are going to happen over a few years, as some of them were, had quite a significant initial capital cost. But in the meantime, they were going to make sure they were buying 100% green power.
Great.
So we really challenge everyone we work with to get straight to 6 stars NABERS with green power.
Yeah, well, that's great, because that's the interesting thing, and dealing with even just households or single households, is that thing of going, it's easier to do the efficiency argument. You then go, well, you could pay a little bit more in green power, and people are like, ooh, paying more is not necessarily there. I mean, hopefully we'll start seeing green power being similar price as we go forward.
Yeah.
But it's good to see that some apartments are actually taking that on now.
Yeah. Well, and also when you look at the per apartment cost, for many buildings that have achieved thousands in savings, with Maestro and Harold Park, the per apartment cost ended up being around $55 per year for green power.
Nothing.
And the owners there were like, it's a no-brainer when they saw those figures.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, which is really great.
That is good, because obviously that makes a massive difference to the carbon footprint. I mean, is this the next step of this? Are you going to try and take owners' corporations and have them look at their overall kind of carbon footprint of the building?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we work with owners' corporations who are also communicating to all of their residents and saying, we're now running the common areas and shared services on green power. You can also purchase 100% green power for your electricity that you use within your apartment. Yeah. So we're going to start to see some real momentum on that as well. And I think for now, NABERS just gives that ability to be able to signal to future owners and buyers, we really do value being good environmental citizens. We want to minimise our footprint, and we also want to run a smart, efficient building and really engage our community. And this is what we value, and we're seeing a lot more of that community building and those green values coming out really strongly. In
terms of that value, do you think we need to get it so that when you're selling your property, you have to put the kind of star rating on there? Because that value is there, but it's not yet kind of advertised at the point of sale.
Yes.
Would you like to see that be required?
Yeah. Absolutely. And we've done research that's shown that, future owners and renters want that information at point of sale or lease. So the demand is only increasing. Australians want action on climate change, and they want to be part of the solution. So the demand is there, and with apartment buildings being a newer entry to NABERS, we're still in that voluntary phase. But the way we talk about this is it's going to be required. It will become mandatory. It's mandatory in commercial office. All of the Australia's built environment is going to have to disclose
Be
our
ahead of the
performance.
curve.
Be ahead of the curve. Get in. And, and that's what Maestro did. They said, we want to lead. Like, we bought into this precinct with it, on the basis of its green credentials. And they really see this as part of their brand and part of their, their community ethos. So, and they want to attract, those younger buyers who they know are passionate about that.
Yeah. When you were doing these, experiments with owners' corporations and trying to find out where the power was going and all that kind of thing, what was it like? Did you kind of find strange things when you were doing that? Yeah.
Absolutely, because there's a lot, particularly in layered schemes and precincts, there are a lot of, there's hidden assets and the things that use energy. Often the owners' corporation, they're just not aware of where the energy is being consumed. So getting that first NABERS rating, it's a little like throwing everything out of the cupboard. And it's really important in terms of fairness. Like, we've got, Australian householders who are paying for you know, utility costs that they shouldn't be paying for.
Yeah.
So often after that first NABERS rating, one of the first steps might be sub-metering, for example, or a reallocation of costs, because the metering is not necessarily is not necessarily simple.
So what, the apartments are accidentally paying for the businesses downstairs or that kind of thing?
Yeah, or one owner's corporation is paying for, you know, the mechanical ventilation of a car park next door, or there's a bit of a mess in terms of the metering, and it's not necessarily aligned with the governance and ownership structures. So that's just another example where NABERS shines a light on that, enables owners corporation to therefore do something about that, and it sends a signal back to government and developers around how can we do this better at a design and build stage to enable Australians to better manage these buildings.
If you were to talk to somebody who was on an owner's corporation who was struggling to get people on board with buy-in, what would you say to them?
I would say, you know, this is your biggest financial investment, and your community is a huge emotional investment as well. And by jumping in now while NABERS is still voluntary, well, getting that understanding of how your building is performing and what you're paying for is absolutely crucial to managing that into the future in a smart way, and being able to purchase green power, be recognised for it, and be able to communicate that to future owners and renters is crucial, not only to the value of your asset, but also the resilience of your community.
Canberra has actually started trying to advertise the kind of environmental ratings of that. How's that going? Is that model working in a way that will work for other states to follow?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few unique, you know, Canberra is a bit unique in some ways, but yeah, many ways. But I think that has shown that there is a thirst for that information, and it does. We've seen with NABERS you know, when ratings become mandatory, the market just takes over, and as soon as you're required to disclose environmental performance, it starts to improve, and there's significant cost savings from that point onward. So we know it will become mandatory. We're moving into an increasingly carbon-constrained economy. I mean, Sydney Water, you know, have come out and said we will be, you know, we're going to pay more for water in times of drought. So, you know, pricing is going to continue to increase. And having that, you know, and future buyers are looking for that information and seeing it not just as a reflection of running costs, but also of good governance, of good asset management.
Do you think that people are starting to understand? Because it's really hard. The thing about climate change is it's a difficult thing to really comprehend. Do you think people are starting to understand not just that my energy efficiency saves me this money, but that that's also what's affecting the climate? You know, the more energy I use, the less environmentally friendly it is. That has consequences for my next generation.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we present to owners' corporations and to strata committees all the time, and very rarely do we get, you know, quizzed on climate science, or, you know, very rarely are there any skeptics. People want to act, but they also see it's smart, it makes good financial sense, and nobody likes waste. And we know that there's a huge amount of energy and water waste. It's costing a lot of money to Australian residents in strata communities, and it's also reducing, you know, having a negative impact on the environment. So I think that message has come through, and I think that capacity to act and that want to lead is only growing.
And that's always been my experience, is the reality is people are not, it's not that people don't want to make a difference, it's that they don't necessarily know how to. And that's where a program like this is great, because you can come in and go, we'll hold your hand, guys.
That's
we
right.
know what to do here. You're not the first building.
Yeah. And I think one thing we found has worked really well is just the way information is presented. So we use something called two futures decision making. So we would present a costed action plan for upgrade and an improvement in NABERS rating. And in option one, motion one, presents the financial impact of acting. So this is what it will cost, and here are the anticipated savings from this lighting upgrade. And motion B presents what happens financially when nothing is done. So therefore, committees are really, you know, not making a decision is no longer acceptable. They are signing on to increased ongoing costs.
So to say, if you don't want to put out this 20 grand now, it'll cost you 50 grand by 10 years' time.
That's right.
That's great.
Yeah. And that's been really successful because future owners can find this information, and that is not many people are going to want to, you know, to sign their name onto something like that. That
kind of deals with that human problem of not being able to look long term. It tries to overcome that and forces people to look long term.
That's right. And legally, when people buy into a strata plan, they also have to have a 10-year capital works plan. So there is, you know, that longer term asset management is already a legal requirement. So doing that in a smart way that is sustainable and going to make sure that they're minimising expenditure and definitely not wasting money is incredibly important.
That's great. I'm going to use that approach with my children now. When I'm going to say, you saved 1 second by not turning that light off.
That's right.
But long term, this is the detriment you're going to have. I'm taking that on board.
Yeah, you'll be Dad of the Year with that one.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks again, Mel.
Thank you.